Down to business.
When he drinks, he thinks.
That's the nectar of the gods, baby.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the #1 liquid-fueled, liquid lubricated show on the interwebs. This is the Whiskey Musings Broadcast. And I have got to give a huge thank you and a shout out to Becky over on Facebook. Wow, she went ahead and put in 500 stars over there for me. Thank you very, very, very much. I do appreciate that. Of course, I appreciate all my whiskey warriors. And yes, Outlaw Dogs, my hat is lower. I went and got a, my ears lowered or raised, depending upon which way you want to look at it. All right. So anyway, before I get I scalped. Tommy over on Facebook says scalped. All right. So I let me go ahead and get this out of the way before I get, smacked around for forgetting it. So please, ladies and gentlemen, if you are of a mind to, please, of course, stand and remove your hats and recite the Pledge of Allegiance with me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. And yes, you can see, it's a little, because it's been a little chilly in the studio here, I've been wearing kind of like a skull cap type of deal. And then, of course, I wear beanie caps when I go outside, to keep the head warm. And so that's why the hair is all messed up and out of place. But that's okay because, you put the hat back on and everything's cool. I got to make sure to try and keep it upright and right. All right. So let's go ahead and get tonight started off with tonight's Whiskey Wednesday. It's like Taco Tuesday, but for badasses. And Buddy actually asked if it was a flat top. No, actually it wasn't. I used to wear one, believe it or not. I had one for quite some time while I was in the service and for a little bit of time out of the service. And anyway, they, Mrs. Whiskey doesn't care for the flat top. She actually wasn't really, I'm kind of surprised that she wasn't that, adverse, I guess is the best way to put it, that adverse to this haircut, considering the fact that she actually did it. So yeah, she did it. She went ahead and cut it. So that was cool. But anyway, yeah, she's not, Mrs. Whiskey's not into the flat top, kind of thing. And, even though I actually liked it, there was a guy, I grew up in Portland, Oregon, and there was a guy down there who ran a chain of, it was like appliances, TVs, things like that. And I can't remember his name, but I can see his face. I wish my dad was still alive. I could call him up and he'd be able to tell me right away who this guy was. But anyway, he always had a flat top. He had it for like 40 years. 40, 50 years. The store that he was in had, flat, he always had a flat top. Yeah. So, it's just, anyway, enough about the haircut, and stuff like that. Hey, so, more news on the hat situation will be coming next week. Okay. And next week, as well as some other information coming out next week, 1 week from tonight. And the reason why I'm kind of holding off is I've got the hats. I'm getting boxes. We're trying to, Mrs. Whiskey and I are working out, trying to get everything set up to figure out how we're going to get your guys' information and that kind of stuff. get all of it set up and then be able to ship them out to you. I've got boxes coming that I think are the right size and so on and so forth. So, anyway, lots of stuff going on there. Lots of stuff. Tonight I am drinking the Knob Creek Kentucky Straight Bourbon Whiskey. So Bonnie will be happy about that. At least it's a bourbon. And of course, it's in the True Grit Roots Network rocks glass for it. And so, yeah. Got the... Got to take the requisite taste. And of course, we're going to go ahead and talk about, because it's Wednesday, True Grit Roots Network. TGRN, True Grit Roots Network. We have our genre channel going right now, 24/7, 365, and TGRN Blues. And I want to tell you about a program that we have on Sunday mornings. Wake up Sunday mornings starting at 9 a.m. Central Time, going to 11 a.m. Central Time. It is Oogie's Sunday Groove. Oogie's Sunday Groove is played exclusively on TGRN Blues, True Grit Roots Network, of course, and it's hosted and produced by our multi-award winner, Jonathan Oogie Richards, my buddy. Oogie's Sunday Groove takes you from the front porch to the pew, featuring the roots of blues that come from the church and the field. Grab a cup of coffee and sit down for Sunday mornings and join Oogie for a spiritual awakening through music. Now, again, this airs Sunday, 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. And then right after Oogie's Sunday Groove is Lady A's Gumbo and Gospel. So you get a double dose of church-going blues in the morning. It is fantastic. Come and join us for Oogie's Sunday Groove and the rest of our wonderful on-air personalities and Sunday programming on True Grit Roots Network, TGRN Blues. Check us out at tgrn.net. You can download our app. You can find us in the Live 365 catalog of digital radio stations as well. Go to tgrn.net to find the app and download it. And then, of course, check us out. You can also go to TGRN and just tgrn.net and just play from right there. We have a player right on the the website there at tgrn.net. True Grit Roots Network, TGRN Blues, all based out of Austin, Texas. And of course, as always, I need to let everybody know that I am co-owner in that endeavor. It is a fantastic thing. We are doing absolutely awesome over there. It is such a kick in the pants for us. Speaking of kicks in the pants and kicks in the cojones. So, one of the big things that happened was the Judge Engeron's judgment. Or, well, it was, I mean, let's be honest, it wasn't really even a judgment, because he said at the outset of the trial, first of all, that he was going to, that Trump was already guilty. It was just a matter of how much of a fine Trump was going to pay. And so, you know, I mean, when you have a judge that says that right from the get-go, it really, really, really just sets the stage for what is and has been the complete lawfare that has been going on with this entire situation, not only on that case, but also on several other cases. You know, he also said, as a part of it, according to this piece in The Guardian, let me go ahead and bring it up here. This piece in The Guardian, Engeron said that there was a lack of contrition from Trump that borders on pathological. He gave prosecutors, Engoron gave prosecutors the fine that they were asking for. But he also did a couple other things. One is that Engoron did not permanently ban Trump from New York's real estate industry. However, he did put a 3-year pause on it. He can't lead, he and his children, apparently, or at least his sons, I guess, can't lead any companies based in New York for 3 years. They were, Eric and Don Jr. were banned from running the company for 2 years. And then, of course, he thought that Engoron stated that he thought that Donald Trump and his adult children lacked credibility on the stand and that he was not persuaded by Trump's arguments. And, of course, he gave that quote, the pathological lack of contrition. All of this is in the report, or in the findings that is out there. Now, if you recall, there was something like a $355 million fine that was added to this, as well as interest payments that were, I think, something around the realm of like $80,000 or $90,000 a day. I can't remember the total amount. But you know, there was a lot of supposition as to what was going on, as to whether or not Trump was actually going to be able to pay it, because apparently, according to New York state law, in order for him to appeal this, he's going to have to put up the entire amount, or somebody else is going to have to put it up. And then, of course, kind of like a bail bonds type of situation. In a bail bonds situation, just to make the numbers easy, if you have bail set at $100,000, you don't actually put up the $100,000. You can go to a bail bondsman and they will put up the $100,000 and then make you pay 10% of that as a fee. But you don't necessarily get that money back. Unless, of course, you know, you're found not guilty or you show up for trial, that kind of stuff. But there is a fee that goes along with that, that you do kind of lose out a little bit on. But the thing about it is, with this whole thing here, is that they would essentially, reportedly, they would have to, Trump would have to put together the money and put it up and put it into like an escrow account. Now, this kind of a thing is, well, first of all, let's just be honest. This case by itself is the first time ever that this law has ever been enforced. And as I pointed out to you on the last episode, you know, even Kevin O'Leary, who is, you know, Mr. Wonderful from the Shark Tank days, even he was saying this is ridiculous, because that's essentially what they're blaming Trump for, is essentially how commercial real estate works, how pretty much any real estate works. Because of the fact that what you do is you put up at what you think your house is worth, and then you're going to go and coordinate with the bank. The bank kind of decides, okay, you know, do we believe this guy? Do we get our own? They go and they get their own, and, you know, get their own appraisal. And then you kind of come to a mutual agreement on how much money is going to actually be loaned using that property as an asset. And that's essentially how this works. The banks sat on the, you know, for the defense. They walked in and they were like, hey man, we've made money off of Trump. We would love to, you know, loan him some more money, because we make millions off of him, you know. And so there were no actual victims to this thing, which is in and of itself amazing, just because of the fact that this has never been done before. It's never been tried in this way. This law has never been used in this way. And, so, you know, again, the amount of money that they are putting on him is really, really excessive. And also, not to mention the fact, like Amy over on Rumble pulls out, she says, who gets the money if there are no victims? Well, technically, I believe the state of New York does. So here's where it comes into a very interesting angle. But before I get to this interesting angle, Letitia James has already threatened to seize President Trump's buildings if he can't actually pay the $354 million fine. She says, if he does not have the funds to pay off the judgment, then we will seek judgment enforcement mechanisms in court, and we will ask the judge to seize his assets. Okay. Now, all of this is very important. And let me explain to you why. Hat tip's got to go to Mark Levin, because he talked about this on his program just last night. There is, well, first of all, I've been saying, and a lot of other people have been saying, that Donald Trump should absolutely appeal this decision. And a lot of the left, of course, the leftist, lackluster, I got a lawyer law degree from, BFE University. For those of you that may not know, that's called Bum F Egypt, meaning that you're like out in no man's land. But anyway, they all jump in and they're like, well, how can he appeal? There's no reason for him to appeal. There's no process. There's no, there wasn't any procedural issues and all these other things. How can he appeal? Well, here's the thing. He actually can. And Mark Levin, man, let me tell you, that guy, he used to be a lawyer. He used to work in the AG's department when Ronald Reagan was in. He is a fantastic constitutionalist. And even people like Jonathan Turley were talking about this and going, my God, this thing is just a huge fine for this in situational kind of a thing. Well, he read a thing on his program last night. It was a article that was written by a gentleman. Let's see. What's his name? Arthur Ferguson. Fergenson. Fergenson. Ferguson, who's a senior counsel for a company. I'm not even going to bother trying to say the word, but he wrote an article, an op-ed piece about it. And, he essentially called out the excessive bail issue that's in the Eighth Amendment. Like, well, wait a minute. Eighth Amendment. Hold on. Eighth Amendment. What are we talking about? The Eighth Amendment. Do you remember those 10 things? The first 10 amendments that are in the Constitution? One of them apparently applies in this situation. This is why, folks, you really ought to read the Constitution. So here we go. I'm going to read to you the Eighth Amendment, and let me explain to you, the Eighth Amendment is probably one of the more shorter amendments that is in here, in this wonderful document that we call the Constitution. Check this out. The Eighth Amendment basically says, and I quote, excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. Now remember, I told you on this program I've said it multiple times. The reason why the first 10 are known as the Bill of Rights, and they, by the way, were the very first amendments that were applied to the Constitution within a year after the Constitution was accepted. Okay? There's a reason why. Because all 10 apply to something, some actions that occurred by the king and during the Revolutionary War. Now, many of you may not remember your history classes, but they used to have things called debtors' prisons. And what these things were is they were where if you could not pay back somebody, like you borrowed money from someone and you could not pay them back, they would send you off to debtor's prison, and you would serve time for essentially owing a creditor some money. There wasn't any real bankruptcy court back then. There wasn't any fairness in that kind of a way. You got sent to prison for not paying your debts. And this goes way back to like Old English common law, okay? And goes even, back to like the Magna Carta and that kind of stuff. I mean, even farther back than that, these debtors' prisons were. And what would often happen with these things is if they couldn't get you on a criminal statute, they would put excessive fines on you to the point where you couldn't pay the fine. And if you can't pay the fine, then you're gonna do time. And the thing about it is that the Eighth Amendment was put into place because of the fact that several of these people had massive amounts of fines and judgments and liens and all of these things put against people for the stuff that they were doing around the Revolutionary War time. And so smart people went and threw this in on the Eighth Amendment. Well, guess what? This particular case is screaming for the Eighth Amendment appeal. Now, there are some questions that were thrown out about whether or not this had anything to do with a state law. Because this, let's face it, the Constitution, is for federal law. Does it really count on state laws, et cetera, et cetera? Well, guess what? This has already been tried and adjudicated in court. In fact, it was adjudicated not that long ago. Tried and adjudicated. Now, Trump went ahead and posted the text of the Eighth Amendment after Mark Levin noted that this could be a constitutional challenge. Now, Mark goes into it a little bit more deeper than what I'm going to because, of course, he's the lawyer and the legal mind. But here's the thing. There was a case that was brought before the Supreme Court and give me just a second, let me find it, in 2018 called Timbs versus Indiana. TIMBS is what it's called. I've got links to all of this information if you have any kind of inkling to read all of this. I've even got the summary opinion or the syllabus and the opinion that was written by the Supreme Court. But this has already been adjudicated at the Supreme Court. So here's what happened with Timbs. So there was apparently a gentleman, Tyson Timbs, who went and purchased a Land Rover for about $42,000, okay, in January of 2013. And basically, he bought it legally. He bought it using funds from his father's life insurance policy. And then during the following 4 months after he bought this, okay, he went and was using that particular vehicle for multiple trips within Indiana to transport heroin. Okay. Now, after getting caught and being arrested at a traffic stop, the Land Rover was then seized, and it had roughly 15,000 more miles on it than when he had originally purchased it. The state went ahead and charged him with 2 charges of felony dealing and 1 charge of conspiracy to commit theft. Timms later pleaded guilty to 1 charge of felony dealing and 1 charge of conspiracy to commit theft in exchange for the state dismissing the remaining charge. Now, after accepting the plea deal, the trial court went ahead and sentenced Timms to 6 years, 5 of which were to be suspended. So in other words, he only spent 1 year in jail. Okay. He also agreed to pay fines and costs totaling approximately $1,200. Now, in addition, the state decided to grab his Land Rover. And originally, the trial court denied that action, ruling that the forfeiture would be an excessive fine under the Eighth Amendment. They characterized it as grossly disproportional to the seriousness of the offense. The court also noted that the maximum statutory fine for Tim's felony dealing charge was only $10,000, whereas the vehicle itself was worth 4 times that amount. The trial court ordered the state to release the vehicle. The Court of Appeals, because the state appealed it, the Court of Appeals agreed with that. Well, then they went to the Indiana Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court reversed that decision, deciding, of course, at the time, that the U.S. Supreme Court had never clearly incorporated the Eighth Amendment against the states under the 14th Amendment. And so anyway, it went to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court sided with Timms. In fact, in their answer, okay, they went through and they outlined the entire thing that I just told you. But then they basically said that it is the Eighth Amendment's excessive fines clause, and here I'm quoting from the opinion piece, the opinion from the case. The Eighth Amendment's excessive fines clause is an incorporated protection applicable to the states under the 14th Amendment's due process clause. So the 14th Amendment's, of course, for those of you that don't know, this is the very first one. The 14th Amendment case basically says that if, you have due process, you can't be charged with something in another state. You have to, there's like that equality throughout the states, and you have to be afforded your due process. Now, the 14th Amendment, of course, for everybody that doesn't know, and I probably explained that badly, but the 14th Amendment, basically talks about what and was put into place right after the Civil War and the release and the emancipation of all the slaves. And so it was designed to ensure equality across all of the states, for specifically dealing with the slaves, but it does also include other things in terms of other laws where a law is, created in one state and then a person from another state goes there and gets charged with it. They have to have equal protection under the law. So the Supreme Court has basically stated that the Eighth Amendment, which, let's be honest here, the Eighth Amendment applies to state laws too. We all know that because of the fact that the Constitution itself is the supreme law of the land. All of the states recognize it when they came in. And when they came in as a part of a state, as a part of the union. And so anyway, this particular case, which again, it was argued on November 28th of 2018 and was decided February 20th of 2019. So this has already basically said that the 8th Amendment can apply to state laws and to the states. And so now we have a situation, given the excessive fine that was put on Donald Trump, where he can appeal it under the 8th and 14th Amendments. Lefties and leftists hate the Constitution. The reason why is because it stops them from doing the things that they want to do. This is monstrous when it comes to this situation. This is monstrous. And the reason being is because, of course, we have a severely excessive fine, not only in the idea of, just the fact that, again, going back over this whole thing, that it was an application of a law that had never been tried before, that it is an excessive amount of money, that there was no victims in this crime, that the money itself is going toward the revenue generation in New York, which I'm fairly certain that is something that Letitia James and Alvin Bragg are discussing. But there's even more pieces to this, by the way. There is actually U.S. code that talks about who Donald Trump could necessarily sue as well, because this would be a deprivation of his rights. Title 42, U.S. Code 1983. Those of you that don't believe me, here it is, right here, Cornell Law School. Every person who, under color of any statute, ordinance, regulation, custom, or usage of any state or territory or the District of Columbia, subjects or causes to be subjected any citizen of the United States or other person within jurisdiction thereof to the deprivation of any rights, privileges, or immunities secured by the Constitution and laws shall be liable to the party injured in an action at law, suit, in equity, or other proper proceeding for redress, except that in any action brought against a judicial officer, for an act or omission taken such as the officer's judicial capacity, injunctive relief shall not be granted unless a declaratory decree was violated or declaratory relief was unavailable. For the purposes of this section, any act of Congress applicable exclusively to the District of Columbia shall be considered to be a statute of the District of Columbia. So what does all that mean? Well, let me put it down for you, okay? Let me put it down for you. This statute, 42 U.S. Code 1983, allows Donald Trump to go after Letitia James and Alvin Bragg. Now, he can't go after Judge Engoron because Judge Engoron falls under the judicial officer's capacity, or the judicial officer. Okay. But he can go after them provided that they find out that they deprived him of his Eighth Amendment right to not be excessively fined. Now, there's even another piece to this that Mark Levin pointed me at as well, pointed all of us at, to be honest, and that is this, which is Title 42 U.S. Code 1985, which includes the idea of a conspiracy to interfere with civil rights. Now, for those of you that don't quite understand why I'm putting this out here and why Mark Levin didn't, connect these up as immediately, is because of the fact that apparently Letitia James and Alvin Bragg have been behind the scenes talking back and forth about the cases. Reportedly, not saying that they did, but reportedly have been working together to go after Trump. So this could be considered a violation of this statute. Here in the code, if two or more persons in any state or territory conspire to prevent by force, intimidation, or threat any person from accepting or holding any office, trust, or place confidence under the United States or discharging any duties thereof, or to induce by any means any officer of the United States to leave any state, district, etc. Wait a minute, that's not. Yeah, so basically, and this is a long one, so I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it essentially means that if two or more persons of any state get together and start talking about stuff and try to prevent the rights or privileges of a individual. So here's in section 3, let me just skip forward here. It says if two or more persons in any state or territory conspire or go in disguise on the highway or on the premises of another for the purpose of depriving, either directly or indirectly, any person or class of persons of the equal protection of the laws or of equal privileges and immunities under the laws, or for the purpose of preventing or hindering the constituted authorities of any state or territory, giving and securing. I mean, this is long talking about. But the point is that they could possibly be in violation of this statute as well. Because if they got together, if Bragg and James got together and discussed and coerced and conspired to get Trump and deprived him of his Eighth Amendment right to not be excessively fined, this could be a bit of a problem. I'm going to tell you, folks, 2024 is going to be a powder keg. I think 2025 is going to be even more so. And we are getting literally a master class in constitutional law and constitutional authorities. Telling you, you guys have got to run out. This is a good time for me to go ahead and do this. You've got to run out and get your copy of the United States Constitution. And I got a great one right here. It is a Saddleback leather-bound U.S. Constitution. Go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. You can go and get this fabulous Saddleback leather. It's 1/8 of an inch. The interior pages are tear-resistant and water-resistant. Check out that binding. It goes all the way through the leather. They have a 100-year warranty against material and manufacturing defects. They will either fix or replace this thing anytime in that 100 years. And according to all of my rumblers, it has sexy rounded corners. I didn't say that right. Sexy rounded corners. Okay. And all of the amendments are in numerical order. The information inside has been verified by my youngest whiskey warrior to be able to pass a civics exam for scouts. It is buddy tested, buddy approved. It is Billy tasted and Billy approved. Go and get your copy today by heading over to constitution.whiskeymusings.online. That's constitution.whiskeymusings.online. And I'm telling you, carry this thing around with you. It is fantastic. It is fabulous. It is wonderful. One of the greatest documents created in the history of man. Let me tell you. Fantastic. Go to constitution.whiskeymusings.online and get yours today. And while you are there, check out the rest of the Institute on the Constitution's stuff. It is awesome. Okay. So, another thing that has been talked about quite a bit in the last several days. So apparently the DOJ, which I think I mentioned this on our last program, apparently the DOJ went ahead and indicted the individual who provided the information on the FD 1023 form, which was one piece of information that spawned the entire Joe Biden impeachment inquiry. Now, the thing about it is with that is the fact that the left has all been saying, oh, well, this guy's a star witness. He's a star witness. And because he's a star witness, that means you got to throw the whole goddamn case out. Throw out the entire case. Because that means that, just because he's been indicted, never mind the fact of whether or not it's actually true or not, he's just been indicted so far under this, that we got to throw out the entire case. Well, that's essentially what Biden's lawyers are asking here in this piece from Axios. Hunter Biden's lawyers asked judge to dismiss the tax indictment, and they're basing this on the fact that the reason why he is being indicted has to deal with the information that was on that FD 1023 form. And so they're asking the judge to dismiss the tax indictment. They're also talking about this, quote, rabbit hole of lies allegedly told by the indicted ex-FBI informant Alexander Smirnov. They say that has infected the investigation into the president's son, per a court filing yesterday. Now, they asked for them, they asked for the dismissing the tax charges in California, also citing due process violations based on outrageous government conduct. And they're essentially saying that the special counsel who charged Smirnov with lying and obstruction, but the more interesting part of this story is not that he lied. It's more remarkable that beginning in July of 2023, the special counsel's team would follow Mr. Smirnov down his rabbit hole of lies as long as it did. Now, here's a couple of things that you have to deal with on this. Is first of all, Smirnov has been a long-time confidential human source, according to the information on that 1023 form. And that the FBI had paid him multiple times for that information. Okay? Now, they, Coco Dominki, it's with a V at the end. So I'm probably mincemeating the pronunciation of this. But anyway, Smirnov. Anyway, Smirnov. Okay, just be happy with that. All right, there we go. So anyway, they are essentially claiming that because this guy is being indicted now, that the FBI is potentially liable because of, and the DOJ is potentially liable because of the fact that they followed him down this path of, and this web of lies, forgetting the fact that this guy has been a reliable, confidential human source and that he's been paid reportedly up to 6 figures for information that this guy has. Now, of course, this is an Axios piece. So they are leaning over into the left side of this whole thing. So to kind of give you an opportunity to take a look at this, they also are saying, the left is also saying that because this guy provided information about the Burisma deal, in specific, he basically said he knew for a fact that Joe Biden was given money. Joe and Hunter and, the rest of them were given money for Burisma. The left is claiming, of course, that this totally negates the idea. Totally negates the idea that we should even be looking into Joe Biden. Well, Jim Jordan, wonderful Jim Jordan, he goes ahead and tells them, yeah, screw you. And here's why. In this piece, according to the Daily Wire, Jordan says the indicted FBI informant does not change what he calls 4 fundamental facts about the Bidens. He listed them out in a conversation where he was talking to somebody and on CNN, I believe. And a guy by the name of Raju, let me see if I can get his full name. And yeah, anyway, it was part of an interview. He gets asked, Jim Jordan gets asked, you said that the 1023 is the most corroborating piece of information. Jordan says it doesn't change those fundamental facts. And Raju says, but it's not true. Well, actually, it is true. Manu Raju. The first fact was that Hunter Biden was put, this is according to Jim Jordan, Hunter Biden was put on the board of Burisma and gets paid $1 million a year. Fact number 2, Jordan outlines, is that Biden was not qualified to be on the board. And Hunter Biden said so much during an interview. The third fact Jordan outlined is that executives at Burisma have been or had asked Hunter Biden, can you weigh in with DC and help us deal with the pressure we are facing from the prosecutor? Now, this is in direct testimony by Devin Archer, where that came from, where that email, I believe it came from. And so Jim Jordan also says, fact number 4, Joe Biden goes to Ukraine days after a call was made and, of course, conditions the release of American tax money based off of firing the prosecutor who was applying the pressure to Burisma. Well, those are 4 facts. Now, the 1023 might have started this whole thing, maybe started the whole thing, but there's a few things that the left, of course, in their, dare I say, brilliant deduction, and I do mean that sarcastically for those that don't hear it in my voice, but the 1023 essentially confirmed information that was already suspected. It didn't necessarily generate the stuff. It just confirmed some of the suspected things that were going on. Okay. And there's other stuff like bank records that show the transfer of money, not only from China, we'll get to that in just a second, but also from places like Burisma and I think it's Romania and a couple of other places. We also have the Hunter Biden laptop, which has been over and over and over again proven to be factual as well as being real. And the left hates it. But the left is sitting here and going over and over and over again about this guy that got indicted for, quote, lying to the on the 1023 form. Well, there's one other person that the left seems to forget. And he actually was one of the very first people to come out on record about the Hunter and Joe Biden crime family syndicate. That is Tony Bobulinski. The Justice Department and the mainstream media continually push this guy aside and keep saying over and over and over again, Bobulinski. No, we're not going to even talk to Bobulinski because, Bobulinski, we're not going to talk to him. Well, he was the first one, as you recall, who came out and identified the fact that Joe Biden is indeed referenced in all of those documents as the big guy. He was also the one who outlined the connection between the Rosemont Seneca partners and the CEFC folks, who were basically Chinese state actors, because that's how it all works over in China. They were Chinese state actors. And he outlined all of this. Now, Bobulinski has maintained all the way up until this day the information that he has given. He's maintained that throughout all the interviews, conversations, etc., etc. And he was a former business associate. Bobulinski told Congress last week, this is reading from the piece in the Washington Examiner, that no one in the DOJ, FBI, IRS, or local law enforcement followed up on the explosive interview that he gave the FBI on October 23rd of 2020. At that meeting, Bobulinski outlined serious allegations against the Biden family and backed his accusations with significant corroborating evidence. Since then, Bobulinski's credibility has been buttressed directly and indirectly by other witnesses and evidence. And yet still, the DOJ has acted as if he does not exist. This guy counteracts that FD 1023 informant, even though that FD 1023 informant, Smirnov, has corroborated a lot of what Bobulinski has been saying. Bobulinski used to be, just to kind of give you a little background in case you forgot, he was a Navy veteran with a high-level security clearance. He is not a political activist, but he has been a past donor to Democratic campaigns. Hunter and his uncle, James Biden, we got something on him in a little bit, enlisted Bobulinski as CEO of a joint investment venture that they and two associates put together with CEFC, which is a huge Chinese conglomerate that was tied to the Chinese government. Bobulinski says he was told Joe Biden was a silent partner in the deal when he was vice president in 2015. Bobulinski also says he discussed these business dealings with the man who is now president on multiple occasions in 2017. The Chinese agreed to provide the entire $10 million for the venture, half for its ownership stake and half as a forgivable quote-unquote loan to the Bidens. In effect, the Bidens got a $5 million share of the company, despite putting up no money. To kind of wrap it up, Bobulinski testified, quote, Joe Biden's immediate family members were enriched to the tune of tens of millions of dollars from some of our most dangerous adversaries, including the Chinese Communist Party and players from Russia, Ukraine, Romania, Kazakhstan, and other foreign nations and entities. He believes that these dealings involved possible violations by Joe Biden of the Foreign Agents Registration Act, Anti-Corruption and Public Integrity Statutes, the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act. According to this piece, Bobulinski's testimony was believable throughout, and his abuse by House Democrats and their staff was a disgrace. He amplified the account he gave in 2023 when he provided the FBI with thousands of documents, pictures, and text messages. So even though this guy, this Alexandrev Smirnov, or whatever his freaking name is, has gone and, been indicted, this entire situation is not going to go away. This isn't something that can go and get swept under the rug because this guy still exists. Now, if you're interested, there's an exhibit that I've linked to that is an interview. It got revised. It's a I think it's a Word doc, but anyway, there's a link. Oh, it's a PDF, and it was redacted. There's some redacted information in there, in terms of the last names of a couple of the people that were present, like some telephone numbers, things like that. Some personal information's been taken out. But if you're interested in reading it and the whole thing, it's kind of interesting the way that he testified here. This is an exhibit that apparently this is the testimony that he gave the FBI for this. This had nothing to do with the necessarily the congressional testimony, but it goes into the congressional testimony as an exhibit. Yeah. Sorry, Joe, but you're crap. And you, literally, you guys have seriously, you got to go. Speaking of the Biden crime family, excuse me, let me take a drink here. All right. Speaking of the Biden crime family, I actually talked about this, believe it or not. I think I had mentioned it. This was the healthcare deal that Joe Biden's brother was pitching to someone to get money in order to save this AmeriCorps back in, and they talked about it even back in October of 2020, and it got virtually no attention. So this is the guy this is coming from a piece in the Front Page magazine, and it was written by Daniel Greenfield. And Daniel says he wrote about the AmeriCorps scandal, probably the least reported Biden Inc. scandal, back in October of 2020. And I talked about it. I talked about it before as well, with regards to this, just showing how much the Biden family, Biden crime family, has in. But apparently what happened, just to kind of reiterate what happened here. AmeriCorps CEO Grant White was allegedly introduced by James Biden to Joe Biden at a fundraiser for the Beau Biden Foundation, which is a charity co-owned or co-chaired by Hunter Biden, as well as Joe. And James Biden mentioned that that a lawsuit filed by one company says that James Biden mentioned that his brother's connections to labor unions and the Department of Veterans Affairs would help DMM expand its model nationwide. And Mayor Anthony Court, who was also a Democrat, recalls White constantly dropping Biden's name. White would later claim that Biden told him there's not a single door in the country that we can't open. Hospital patients might have been able to get basic care and supplies, but the money wasn't there. Meanwhile, James Biden had allegedly made off with $650,000. And according to the AmeriCorps CEO, Jim Biden directed me to loan him approximately $400,000 of this money for him to use to repay a past due personal loan. And later, that CEO also says Biden took additional amounts totaling approximately $250,000. Now, what's interesting to this is that AmeriCorps wired on March 1st in 2018, he wired the $200,000 into a loan, or from the loan into the James and Sarah Biden's personal bank account, not their business account. And at the exact same day, James Biden wrote the $200,000 check from the same personal account over to Joe Biden. Now, they claim that this is a personal loan repayment. But here's the thing. Yes, this was done after Joe Biden was out of office. Yes, this appears to be an American company. But the thing about it is that this is demonstrating how the Biden influence peddling crime family dealt. Okay? This is how they did this. Now, there are several other bank withdrawals, and they can trace the money from like the CEFC and all of those things. They can trace them all the way. Okay? Now, here's some more disturbing details about it. After AmeriCorps sued Biden and his partners, they received an envelope filled with bloodstained currency from a Middle Eastern country linked to terrorists and a torture ticket resulting in an FBI investigation. Politico also put in a reported on AmeriCorps, but turned up an email that confirms James Biden was using a familiar pitch. So this is from the Politico report on an email for then. Okay, so this is coming from Politico, being reported in this piece. For then 67-year-old Jim Biden, the third of four Biden siblings, his ties to his older brothers made up much of his pitch as he pursued deals that could help AmeriCorps make money from drug rehab, lab testing, and even cancer treatment. Jim Biden wrote to the CEO of the Tampa area company that controlled licensing rights to an experimental cancer treatment the hospital operator wanted to offer. And he wrote, quote, "This would be a perfect platform to expose my brother's team to your protocol. Could provide a great opportunity for some real exposure." So, yeah, this just shows you how they operate. It is completely an influence peddling scheme. And as Buddy points out on Rumble, the Biden syndicate should be a target of a RICO investigation rather than Trump. And this is true. Which, by the way, I'm not even sure, to be honest, I'm not too sure quite where that whole Georgia RICO case is going to go, because I also heard, I don't know if I stuck this in the show notes, but I also heard that the judge of the situation down there questioned the credibility of Fanny, whatever her name is, Willis's testimony of her dad. And the reason being is because Judge Scott McAfee said that her father appeared to violate the sequestration rule. So what that is the judge basically asked the dad, essentially about the stuff that Fanny was talking about in terms of like keeping money and whether or not he knew of their personal relationship between her and Miss Wade and so on and so forth. And so what they ended up doing is they ended up questioning some of the things that he was saying, because he violated the rule where he is not supposed to talk to the other witnesses. Apparently he violated that. Because he appeared to violate it. Let's see. He was called in so John Floyd, father to Ms. Willis, was called in as a state witness to testify in favor of her regarding her living situation and so on and so forth. But the lawyer who brought the motion attempted to strike Mr. Floyd's testimony after he said that he was aware. That's Ashley Merchant. So this is the Trump lawyer, or the Trump team lawyer, I should say. I don't think she represents Trump directly. Said that he was aware that after the dad said that he was aware of Miss Willis's testimony from the previous day, because of the fact that the case is everywhere in the media and that he reads the newspapers every day. So basically he violated it by looking at the news media and stuff. So yeah, this is going to be a bit of a problem. Because under the rules of the court, witnesses have to be sequestered and can't be aware of other witnesses' testimony. Now, McAfee did kind of sort of side on the Willis side in basically saying that he denied the request to strike the testimony, but suggested that Mr. Floyd did violate the rule, and basically that means that it should go to his credibility. So I'm not quite too sure where this is going to go. Again, I think she was very argumentative on the stand. And obviously this is something, their relationship was definitely in violation and money making, or at least, allowed them to do things like go off on lavish vacations and things like that due to this case. But that definitely is a bit of a problem for how that goes. So continuing on with, or going back to, I should say, Biden. Did you know that he has a State of the Union address coming up? I'm pretty sure most of you do. But apparently Biden is potentially backing down a little bit on his idea that he can't do anything about the border. So apparently reports are saying that he is looking at an executive order coming out on immigration as the State of the Union, of course, it looms. Now, the State of the Union, I believe, is going to be in right around mid-March. But according to Axios, they reported that an executive order that Biden is mulling on would dramatically staunch the flow of migrants into the Southwest. And apparently Joe Biden is counting on the State of the Union address to provide an opportunity for what he calls a reset moment. Okay. They are in panic mode over this Her report, folks. They are in complete panic mode over this thing because literally Her boxed them into a corner. You essentially have to ask yourself the question. First of all, if Joe Biden is not mentally competent to stand trial, then that brings into question whether or not he is mentally competent to be president of the United States. Or, yes, Joe Biden is competent to stand trial, and he was aware of what he did. And now the question becomes, then why isn't he being charged? Her really kind of, I don't know if he intended on doing this, but he actually like masterfully stuck him in a corner with this. And of course, the entire left and the Joe Biden campaign are just freaking out over this thing. But one thing that somebody caught, which I thought was kind of interesting, and as far as the Her report talks about, is here in PJ Media, this article, how Her's report hid Biden's obstruction. Now, if you recall correctly, Trump was indicted, okay, and is being brought up on charges of obstruction when it comes to the Department of Justice's investigation into his retention of presidential records. Pointed out on this program, I think that was a cover to try and find that binder, that 10-inch binder that they were talking about with regards to the Russian collusion hoax and the proof that it was manufactured, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody noticed, but Russian collusion and Russian disinformation and Russian connections to Trump have really kicked off in the mainstream media here recently. I got a little bit about that here in just a second, but the similar investigation that suggests that just completed with the Her report suggests that at the same time, and this is reading from the PJ Media piece, at the same time the Biden's White House was pushing the FBI and the Department of Justice, aided by the National Archives, to encircle the impudent Trump, Biden was also impudently, but more cleverly and dishonestly, perpetuating the same obstruction enabled by Her's intentional lack of crucial scrutiny. Her does not mention the significance of May 2022 because it was actually on May 24th of 2022 that the White House counsel's office, through a woman by the name of Dana Remus, suddenly sought to retrieve President Biden's files from the Penn Center at the University of Pennsylvania, which had been financed largely through contributions from Chinese government-associated entities. Her purpose in doing so was, what she told Her, was to prepare for congressional inquiries into the Biden family activities from 2017 to 2019, when Biden claimed he occupied the center. So, in other words, it's possible that this lawyer went in and, grabbed all of these documents in an attempt to make sure that they didn't have classified documents. So that could be considered obstruction of an investigation. Yeah. Again, the more we dig out of this, the more we have. Now, this is a picture, if you're watching on Rumble, or any of my other outlets, Facebook, YouTube, etc. There's a picture that the lawyer took of the Penn Biden Center, and it was reproduced in the Her report. They seem to all hold the closet's documents in boxes as opposed to being loose that could easily be shipped as is. So, Remus apparently on May 24th coordinated with an executive assistant who had worked with Biden both during his second term as vice president and also during his tenancy at the Penn Biden Center to pack up the documents there and separate personal files. On June 28th, as the FBI was closing in on Trump, the executive assistant packed up what she thought were all of the files at the center, which only took half an hour since a lot of the stuff was already packed up. The lawyer Remus did not have the assistant send the documents, likely because that evening the assistant wrote Remus by email 13 boxes. There are clearly marked boxes with correspondence throughout 4 years. This correspondence from the center pointed to possible proof of Biden's use of classified information after his term in office. And if it continues on, the article continues, if these 13 boxes were from Biden's office, there should also be 40 boxes, which were depicted earlier in the hallway closet. If any of the 40 boxes had been removed, that would imply the use of classified documents, a crime. If they were still on site, they still needed to be stripped of classified documents or simply removed. While then it would need to be explained why they were not the 40 brimming, full, and varied boxes shown in the March 2021 picture, again implying the use of missing documents. In short, there were around 53 boxes that could prove problematic. So again, here we have a little detail in the Her report that might indicate that Biden and his team was assisting in potentially obstructing the investigation into Joe Biden and his classified documents scandal. We all know that he had them. We all know that he had documents. He kept documents. He kept it from back when he was a senator. He had literally zero reason and zero authority to have any classified documents outside of a SCIF, which is a specially compartmentalized information something. I can't remember, but it's a place for you to view information that is not supposed to be out in the open. And here we are. Yeah, the same thing that Trump is being blamed for, which, by the way, I don't know if anybody's noticed, but that whole obstruction thing is kind of hung up. It's been hung up. And haven't heard a lot from Jack Smith. Haven't heard a lot from Jack Smith on this. But yeah, it's just horrible. This entire thing, I got to tell you, in my personal opinion, even with like living through the Reagan-Iran Contra scandal and all of that crap, knowing about Watergate because it had just, happened 10 years prior and that kind of thing, this has easily got to be the most corrupted and most corruptible administration of all time. I just cannot believe how this guy is getting off and completely being covered up by the mainstream media. All right, so really quickly before I get to our pet of the week, Donald Trump has again suggested some people who are on his short list for vice president. This is coming from the New York Post. The names that he has included as a part of his short list are Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard, who's a Democrat, by the way, Ron DeSantis, Senator Tim Scott, Representative Byron Donalds, and the biotech entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy, as well as South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem. Now, I honestly do not believe that any of these people, outside of potentially the following three, are realistically have a shot at this. You have Senator Tim Scott. I think he's one of the three, one of the top three. Not necessarily number one slot, but definitely one of the top three. Byron Donalds, top three. And Kristi Noem is in the top three. Ron DeSantis has mentioned that he would not become Donald Trump's vice president. Now, we all know how much Ron DeSantis' word actually goes because of the fact that Ron DeSantis said he wasn't going to jump in the race if Donald Trump was in it. He also said that he was going to serve Florida for his 4 years and then jumped into the presidential race. So honestly, I mean, as much as Ron DeSantis, you know, because you have to consider, folks, you really have to consider, once Donald Trump only has one more term in him. Okay. And, Redford, good point. I'm going to point that out here in just a minute. But here's the thing, is that Donald Trump only has 4 more years. And whoever comes in as his VP will essentially be the de facto heir apparent for the presidency and the presidential run in 2028. Okay. Now, it would be odd, but not unheard of, because back in the past, there were no political parties, and it was the top 2 that would win. Whoever got the most votes in the Electoral College, they ended up as president, and whoever got the second most votes, regardless of political affiliation, they ended up as vice president. That's the way it used to work before we actually had political parties. And in fact, the founders didn't even really want to do political parties. They didn't necessarily believe in them. So what we ended up with, or what we could potentially end up with, is a Tulsi Gabbard as a secondary or as a vice presidential pick. I personally, I'm not thrilled about that. I'm going to be honest with you. I really am not thrilled about that choice. Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm not thrilled about either. The reason being is because if something does happen to Donald Trump, which, let's face it, he is under a target of immense pressure and anything could happen to him, is that Donald Trump would have to pass the baton to somebody. And I realistically do not want Vivek Ramaswamy in, because if they go and let's say they go and impeach him, then it would go to Ramaswamy, and Ramaswamy, I don't think is ready. I don't think he's ready. Okay. Now, Redford 1238 brings up this point. It can't be anyone from Florida. Okay. That may be a misnomer. Constitutionally speaking, most people think that the president and vice president cannot be from the same state. But when you specifically read the Constitution, it says that the electors cannot vote for somebody of the same state if both of them are from the same state. So I think it would bring up a constitutional question because, again, it's sort of a little vague. Most people interpret it as the president and vice president can't be from the same state. But in reality, I'm not quite sure that the actual text of the Constitution supports that theory. So when you look at it, if you look at the Constitution and you look at it from the point of they cannot be from the same state, okay, then what you end up with is DeSantis and Donalds would be essentially off the list immediately. Okay. Now, a lot will come into question as to whether or not you could say Donald Trump actually lives in Florida. Because again, he could potentially, he has a lot of properties all over, as Outlaw Dogs kind of mentions here, is that Trump can move to the state of New Jersey, and he has, since he has properties there, and he could consider himself a New Jersey native or from the state of New Jersey. Now, I mean, again, all of this is going to bring up some constitutionality. And as you've seen already, we have a lot of constitutional questions being answered and being asked this year for this, this scenario. But regardless, Kristi Noem is a virtual unknown. And I highly doubt that Trump would necessarily put somebody like Kristi Noem in that spot. My guess is that Tim Scott is more than likely in the lead slot on this thing. Although Vivek Ramaswamy has been seen in multiple appearances with Donald Trump, and so that's why he keeps looking like Vivek might be the guy and keeps his name in the hat. And let's be honest, throughout the entire primary, while Vivek was in it, he essentially backed up Trump, which of course Trump loves. Trump would love that and would love it completely. But I'll be honest with you. I mean, right now, Donald Trump has already talked about how he already knows who he is going to pick. Here, he said he's already picked it. So here we also have the thing of, again, kind of looking at the meshing of the who is in control. And you have to understand that the reason that Donald Trump and Mike Pence actually worked is because Pence, and by worked, I mean very loosely on this, but Pence is actually, Pence would actually be, was essentially a non-alpha male. He was a back seat. And when you look at people like DeSantis and Donald Trump, those are two alpha males. They are not going to live very well in the White House with the two of them together. So, yeah, honestly, again, Tim Scott has shown up a couple of times on a couple of different lists, as well as Kristi Noem, as well as Vivek Ramaswamy. This is the first time that I think we've heard anything about Tulsi Gabbard and even consideration of Ron DeSantis. So I'm kind of wondering, I think I'm leaning toward Tim Scott. And then, of course, there's always Byron Donalds just to throw in that potential constitutional thing, because I would love to see that. I would love to see that. But yeah, I just don't see Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump being together. As much as I think that Ron DeSantis, had he kept his nose clean, honestly, as much as he would have kept his nose clean and stayed out of the race, I think that would have put him in a better position for taking up the VP slot. Anyway. All right. So let me get to, of course, tonight's, and I got to figure out which one it is. Yeah. Let me go ahead and get to tonight's pet of the week. All right. And tonight's pet of the week was submitted to me by Bonnie over on Rumble. So Bonnie, here we go. This is Landon. Now, apparently Landon believes, as I think most of our people believe, or most of our animals believe, Landon believes that he works hard all day. Yeah, as you can see, he is working really hard at sunning himself in a chair. And hanging out on what appears to be some sort of a blanket and dog bed. Yeah, he's really working hard. Landon is really working hard. Now, Bonnie did not give me any information in terms of what breed Landon is. So Landon, I don't know. I'm just going to guess. That he's something in maybe the, I don't know, Beagle cross or something like that. Just guessing. Well, so apparently this is a UK blanket, according to Bonnie. Possibly, Beagle Hound, could be Hound Dog. Yeah, actually the markings kind of resembles potentially a Hound Dog. So could be part in that. Could be a little bit of that. But he's kind of hanging out. I personally think he's a little uncomfortable. He's got his head up. Oh, that's right. He's a walking tree coonhound. Walking tree coonhound. Now, I think Outlaw, aren't one of your dogs or both of them tree coonhounds too? I think so. Anyway. Now, I understand that I understand they're going all crazy over here on Rumble, but I understand that at times Landon does wake up long enough, okay? Does wake up long enough to get educated. He gets educated from the Whiskey Musings broadcast, but I got to admit, look at this guy's facial expression when he is looking at or watching the Whiskey Musings broadcast. Do you think that is a face of somebody who actually believes what I was saying? He is sitting and watching the Whiskey Musings broadcast, and just take a look at that face. Look at the ears. Look at how they're sitting. I'm not exactly sure that he is really agreeing with me on the broadcast. What do you guys think? Do you guys think he's agreeing with me or not? I mean, if he could talk, what would he be saying right here? I don't know. I'm not convinced that he's convinced that what I am telling or saying is the truth. That is definitely a cute photo. That is definitely a cute photo. All right. Thank you, Bonnie, for allowing us to take a look at Landon in his extremely busy life. Apparently, according to Redford, I'm wrong. He's actually saying, "Oh shit, that's true." Okay. So anyway, thank you for sharing Landon with us. Do me a favor. If you guys want to have your pet featured on Pet of the Week, send me an email with your pet's photo or photos or video. I can do video too. Any of them. And and send it on in to fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. That's fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online, and you can get your pet on for Pet of the Week. Pet of the Week is on Wednesdays. You can also use that same email address to send me a question for whiskey. I do for Saturday night show. I don't have a question for whiskey for Saturday. So if you have a question, send it in to fans, FANS, at whiskeymusings.online. All right, do me a favor. If you haven't already and you're on Rumble, press that thumbs up button, the green thumbs up under the video. Rumble counts those and gets us into the leaderboard for that. And if you are not a part of Rumble, head on over to Rumble. What is stopping you? Head on over to Rumble. Sign up for an account. It's free. And then search up the Whiskey Musings Broadcast and follow that. Follow my channel, the Whiskey Musings Broadcast channel. We will see you guys, everybody, all my whiskey warriors and all the newcomers too, on Saturday. Saturday night show is 1 hour later. It's 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. And we'll see you here, bright and shiny with some new stuff on Saturday. Have a great rest of your week, and we'll see you then. Good night, everybody.
The Whiskey Musings broadcast is produced by Active Eye Media, LLC. All rights reserved.